Hong Kong leader accuses U.S. of double standards over protests. U.S. has been critical of Hong Kong's response to the demonstrations, with President Donald Trump vowing to end special trading status. The Hong Kong leader has now warned Washington's plan to place trade restrictions on the financial hub would only hurt themselves. "We have seen most clearly in recent weeks the double standards that are around," Lam, who was selected as city leader by a pro-Beijing committee, told reporters. "You know there are riots in the United States, and we see how local governments reacted. And then in Hong Kong, when we had similar riots, we saw what position they adopted then. Both Chinese and Hong Kong officials have seized on the unrest gripping the U.S. in their propaganda drive to justify their own crackdown on pro-democracy protests and the national security law plans. Last week, China's rubber-stamped parliament approved the plans for a law that would punish secession, subversion of state power, terrorism and acts that endanger national security, as well as allow Chinese security agencies to operate openly in the city." Beijing says the anti-subversion law, which will bypass Hong Kong's legislature, is needed to tackle terrorism and separatism. Opponents fear it will bring mainland-style political oppression to a business hub, supposedly guaranteed freedoms and autonomy for 50 years after its 1997 handover from Britain to China. Trade targeted at her weekly press conference, Lam said Hong Kong had spent 23 years failing to enact its own national security laws in the legislature, prompting Beijing to take the initiative. There is simply no justification whatsoever for any government, any economy, to impose sanctions on Hong Kong as a result of a very legitimate process of the central government, the central authorities, taking this decision to enact laws for Hong Kong to better protect national security, she said. They will be hurting their own interests in Hong Kong, she added, referencing U.S. threats to restrict trade privileges. Lam said some 1,300 American businesses have a presence in the financial hub, which generates the largest trade surplus for the U.S. compared to any other country or territory. She added. She also said Hong Kong allows Americans to enter without a visa, a privilege that is not reciprocated. Lam did not elaborate on whether visa-free travel could be rescinded in response to any trade sanctions, but Chinese officials have vowed to implement countermeasures to any move by the U.S. Under a 1992 law, the U.S. treats Hong Kong as a separate trade entity to the more restricted and authoritarian Chinese mainland, as long as the city retains key freedoms and autonomy. Last month, the State Department announced the territory was no longer sufficiently autonomous to justify that special status.